Hi guys, this is Dr. Daulton from Hammond Chiropractic, and I'm really excited to be back with a new exercise video for you guys today. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the proper form for a deadlift. And of course, as always, I'm back working with my very favorite people over at Fuel CrossFit in Crown Point, and our good friend Coach Dustin Shurlow is going to be helping us and teaching you how to do this exercise properly. Now, the reason I like the deadlift is because it's a really good exercise for improving the strength of your spine over time. And actually, it's a full body exercise. When you do this, you're going to be strengthening the muscles from top to bottom. But the other benefit that I really love about the deadlift, in addition to its benefits for the back, is that it's also a really good exercise to help you improve your balance. So if that's something that you struggle with, this is going to be a good video for you, because this is something that you can start doing on a regular basis, and you can eventually build up or improve your balance skills. Now, as always though, with any exercise, there's also risk. And with the deadlift, the risk that we take is that we could actually injure our backs. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to have Coach Dustin teach you guys how to do this exercise properly, and then I'll come back on the video and we'll talk a little bit more about ways that you can make sure that you protect yourself so that you get the full benefit from this exercise, but you also don't injure yourself with it, okay? All right, so Coach Dustin is going to teach you now, and then I'll see you guys soon.
Alright guys, so today we are going to be talking about the deadlift, one of my personal favorite lifts. So starting out, we want to set our stance. I usually recommend that people set their stance anywhere between shoulder width and hip width apart. We want to make sure that the bar is as close to our shins as possible and that there's no separation between us and the bar. Otherwise, we are going to have to end up pulling that bar a little bit further, and we don't want to create that extra work for ourselves. We're going to bring our hands down the sides of the legs, and we're going to grab the bar with even spacing. We want to keep our shins nice and vertical. We do not want to squat to start our deadlift. We want to bring our hips slightly down and back so that our hamstrings are nice and loaded. Make sure that the pressure is in your heels and not into your toes. We're going to pull our shoulder blades back to create a nice flat back. From there, we're going to stand the bar up, keeping our arms nice and straight. When we return that bar back to the floor, we want to get our hips back and just let that bar go straight down towards the ground and not go around our knees.
All right, guys. Well, now that Coach Dustin has taught us how to do the deadlift properly, I just want to cover a few tips as far as making sure that you are protecting your back so that you don't injure yourself. You see, as you can notice with this movement, you're putting most of the stress on the lower back when you do this exercise. And of course, that's the way that you're going to build the strength in that area. However, there's a few things you have to be careful of, because the two issues that we're concerned about here is, number one, misalignments that can happen in your lower back. And of course, if the vertebrae misalign, they're going to put pressure on the nerves in the back, and that's going to cause all kinds of problems for you. But the other issue that we have to take seriously and be concerned about here is injury to the discs in the lower back. This puts a lot of load on the discs, which are basically the cushions between the bones, and you take the risk that if you don't do this properly, you're going to put too much pressure on them, and you could cause herniations, and of course that leads to serious degrees of arthritis and different things of that nature down the road if these things aren't taken care of properly. So let me go ahead and cover just a few things that you want to make sure that you're doing with this exercise to make sure that you're not going to injure yourself. The first key here is that we want to make sure that the back stays neutral through this entire exercise. You want to make sure that you don't have any rounding of the back, which is a temptation that people have because you're reaching down to grab the bar. So when we get into our position to lift the bar, the very first thing you want to make sure of is that you're conscious that you keep your back neutral and that you make that happen before you lift. The next thing is the placement of the bar. You want to make sure that the bar is placed over the middle of the foot. And when we say the middle of the foot, I'm talking about the middle of the entire foot, not just the front of the foot. When you do this properly, what you're going to find is that the bar is going to be actually very close to your shin, and that's the proper position for this. The reason that we want to make sure that we keep the bar in the right position is because this is where the balance is going to be improved. If you have the bar too far forward, when you go to lift it, you put a lot more strain on the lower back, but also you're going to be losing your balance. So if you have the bar right where it's supposed to be over the foot and close to the shin, this is going to bring the center of gravity towards the center of your body. Number one, it's going to be easier to lift the bar, but number two, It takes a lot of pressure off the back, and you're going to get the benefit of improving your balance when you do this exercise if you do that part properly. The next thing is you want to make sure that you're conscious that your feet are flat on the floor. Now, as Coach Dustin had mentioned to you, you want to have the pressure on the heel of the foot when you go into the position before you lift the bar. However, it's important that you make sure the entire foot stays flat. Do not let the toes come off the ground here, because once again, this is something that's going to help to improve your balance. The next thing that we want to be conscious of is that your shoulders are directly over the bar before you lift the bar up. And that is another thing that's going to help improve your balance and take some of the load off of your spine. Now finally, one of the most important things that you can do to protect your back when you're doing a deadlift is the proper breathing for this. And here's actually how it goes. When you go down and put your hands on the bar, the very first thing you want to do is you want to take a deep breath in. Then you're going to hold that breath in and you're going to brace your core or your abdomen. Then you hold your breath as you lift the bar up and keep the breath held as you put the bar down on the ground, and then you exhale, and then you start over with that process. And it's important that you do that each time that you lift the bar, which, by the way, is one of the hardest things to do. You know, in CrossFit, we do these activities pretty quickly, and so it's tempting to get lazy with some of the breathing techniques that are proper for this, but I'm telling you that if you do this, it's the best way that you can protect your spine when you're doing a deadlift. Now, I also want to say at this point that a lot of people will use weightlifting belts for doing the deadlift, and I think that's a fantastic thing, but you want to make sure that you're using it properly. The temptation is, and I spoke a lot about this when we talked about squats in a previous video, but when people wear the weightlifting belts to protect their back, the temptation is that they get lazy and they let the stomach muscles become weak, all right? And that's not what we want here. If you're wearing the belt, what you want to make sure of is that you've got a little bit of room. You want to be able to put your thumbs between the belt and your body, because what you're going to do is you're going to do the exact same breathing technique that I just described, but when you inhale and when you contract the core, you're actually going to be pushing against the belt, so it's going to help brace you a little bit stronger. So it is okay if you use a weightlifting belt, but make sure that you do it properly and that you don't give into the temptation of relying on the belt for strength instead of strengthening your core. You always got to keep the core tight, even if you're going to be wearing the weightlifting belt for some support. Now, the final thing is that going along the lines of keeping your back neutral, you want to make sure that you keep your chest up at all times during this exercise and that you are bringing the shoulders back some, because this is going to help protect the lower back as well when you contract those muscles between the shoulder blades, and specifically the lats, which are directly underneath the shoulder blades there. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about, because you're going to see this happen, is that there's different grips when you hold on to the bar. Now, the typical grip is going to be where you've got both hands forward and you've got one hand on the inside of the bar and then all your other fingers are on the other side. And what you're going to notice is that when people start to lift heavier with this, they do something called a mixed grip. And what a mixed grip is when you have one arm forward and then one arm backwards, all right? The reason this helps is it helps to improve your grip strength, all right? And the reason it's doing that is because if you have the normal grip, what happens is that your thumbs are going to start to get tired before the other fingers are in the front. And so you're going to start to lose your grip. If you mix the grip or put one hand forward, one hand backwards, what that does is it distributes the weight more evenly through your hands, and so the hands don't get as tired through the activity. But there's one thing I want to warn you about this, because this is the one thing you got to be careful of. If you're going to use a mixed grip for your deadlift, you have to make sure that your elbows are fully extended and that you keep your arms straight when you lift the bar up. If you have any bend to your elbow, you're going to put a lot of strain on your biceps muscles, which is the muscles in front of the arm here, and you take the chance that you could tear the tendon that attaches that to the bone, and that's a very serious injury. You do not want to be facing that. So if you're going to do a mixed grip, always remember, keep the elbows nice and straight through the entire movement, so that way you don't put too much strain on the arm and on the shoulders and you can cause damage there. All right, we want to prevent all of that if possible. All right, guys, that's all I have to tell you today about the deadlift. I hope you enjoyed that, and I strongly encourage you to start putting that into your normal exercise activities, because I'm telling you, if you do this on a regular basis, it's going to gradually increase the strength in your spine, and you're going to be a lot better off for doing this on a regular basis. All right, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.